I saw this video by a looksmaxer called Clavicular, and I thought I'd do a response since it's a basic video going over the common objections that you'll find, um, against raw milk, and that's his point of the video, trying to refute the benefits of raw milk. I used to be in the looksmaxing community for about a year in early 2023, but then I found out that the whole worldview is just wrong, and it really doesn't matter. At least what they think matters. Their entire paradigm is baseless. And so, essentially, I thought I'd just do a response. I got a point-by-point breakdown that I'm going to do, and let's get into it.
What's going on, guys? Today we're going to look at one of the most absurd trends I've seen on TikTok, which is going to be the primal, but specifically the raw diet.
Makes no sense. You would say the raw, but more specifically the primal diet. The primal diet, what I mean, is the diet developed by Agnes von der Planets in the late 1970s and early 2000s, illustrated in his two books, We Want to Live and The Recipe for Living Without Disease, as well as expanded in his Q&As. I don't know what he means by primal diet. Maybe he means like paleo, because that's what some people mean, but that's what I mean by primal diet. And yeah, that doesn't specify it at all. That broadens it even more, because that just broadens into any raw diet. So right off the bat, we're on a wrong foot.
These people are so delusional, they'll make claims like toxin accumulation is what's actually causing your dark eyes, not genetics.
Yes, he's referring to iridology there. Iridology is not a mainstream science. It's the belief that you can see someone's organ health through their eyes, and that certain part of the iris correspond to certain parts of your body and your organs, as well as just showing generally how healthy you are. And yeah, you want to make little sly remarks like that, obviously, because the position sounds dumb, but at least look at the evidences of the people that you're criticizing before you just dismiss it outright. Here is an example from Dr. Robert Morse, one of his followers. Dr. Robert Morse is an iridologist, and one of his followers sent in their change from a darker brown to a much more lighter brown through lymphatic detoxification.
All this is, how thick this is, and now look over here, you can see now more clarity. Look at that. And now more of her light, or his, brown eyes showing up. Talking about the splenic flexure. Okay, so over here, look at that prolapsing here. But take a look at it when you get over here. Look at these thick, deep lacunas. These are crypts, man.
And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, look at the evidences of the other position before you just dismiss it and, make sly remarks about it.
Firstly, let's take a look into raw milk. Is it necessary? Let's talk about the pasteurization process. So just think to yourself, why the hell would these manufacturers go out of their way to do this expensive high-heat pasteurization process if it actually wasn't necessary? They fucking wouldn't.
I'll tell you why. The insidious reasons why Louis Pasteur's ridiculous theories were selected by the atheist globo-capitalist elite are so easy to understand and obviously true, only the pathologically dishonest and those invested in lies to the point of no return deny. Almost immediately upon Pasteur and Koch articulating the basic tenets of the germ theory, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, in his fiction writing, engineered the theory into a potent psyop for a criminal madman to use a biological weapon to gain power and terrorize his enemies, in The Adventure of the Dying Detective. Sadly, this technique would be more perfectly wielded by governments over their own populations. Pasteur's theory fit mechanistic theories popular at the time among atheists in developing technocracies, put responsibility for bad health on outside influences, further feeding the insolence of the modern atheist hubris, putting megacorporations and big pharma into perpetual business as the great protectors of the human race from those microbial demons. The fundamental postulates of the germ theory are the following. 1. Atomism. 2. The human body is not designed by God to heal itself, but is a product of Darwinian evolution, arbitrarily throwing its proverbial solution to its problems against the wall to see what will stick. It doesn't know what to do because there was no God that designed it to deal with the problems of the world. Often, it finds itself warning against itself, and others it is being conquered by microscopic demons. The cause of the disease is not important. The main point is to make money off of human suffering by managing the symptoms. Since the body is not designed by God but is full of vestigial organs, then, when you have appendicitis, there is no need to repent of your sinful, neat eating and living habits and detox through a change of lifestyle. On the contrary, let's just remove your appendix. 4. Millions of years of evolution favored the survival of bacteria that destroyed other bacteria by producing weaponized substances. The reference for this is Professor Barry Fox's An Introduction into Infectious Diseases, Lecture 6, the audiobook on Audible when there's 25 minutes remaining. 5. Thus, primitive organisms are simpler, later more complex organisms are a product of evolution. 6. Viruses, bacteria, and parasites cause disease. Clavicular also adds in pathogens in his little listing, but that's just redundant because a pathogen is just described as anything that causes disease. 7. Bacteria cause toxins. The catalyst of events that promoted Louis Pasteur's theory to prominence was his observation that bacteria are responsible for fermentation and quote-unquote spoilage, and he demonstrated that injecting a sheep with anthrax bacillus resulted in anthrax disease in the injected sheep. The first observation was obviously chosen to promote the rising capitalist food industry, now equipped with Pasteur's theory, could keep their now nutritionally ravaged products on grocery shelves much longer, increasing their revenue exponentially. Also, when it comes to pasteurization, it doesn't matter how sick the animal is, you can always just boil the milk. Anyone who cannot see the profit motive in quote-unquote accepting Pasteur's theory is dense beyond repair. The establishment was not convinced his theory was true. They were convinced his theory was profitable. Moreover, his understanding of bacteria and spoilage is baseless. Let's continue.
High heat pasteurization is required to kill microorganisms like pathogens and parasites. So no, high heat pasteurization isn't some huge conspiracy theory to tank your testosterone levels. It's actually for your safety.
Is that the case? Well, obviously your whole video hinges on germ theory, because even later he admits that vitamins get lost inside of pasteurization. But then goes on to say for some reason that milk isn't a big substance of those vitamins, even though babies live off of raw milk. We live off of raw milk when we're in our infancy, so it's obviously not a problem there. We seem to get everything from it there. Anyways, terrain theory is the alternative. It's the view of most every primal person I know. And Jonas von der Planitz obviously believes in it. Also just the belief of the ancient world. The cause of disease is ingestion through mouth or skin, inhalation, or injection of toxins. Generally, disease is a result of sinful eating, salt, white, processed sugar, and caffeine, and alcohol or drug habits. When sodium is in a bioactive form, such as a plant or animal tissue, it is fine, but the industrialized rock salt form of sodium is toxic. The cure to disease is then repentance and spiritual reformation, detoxification through abstinence from previous toxic habits, eating raw primal, and restoration of bacteria and enzymes. This also includes absorption of radiation poisoning from modern cell phone towers, modems, computers, routers, and cell phones. Also, microplastics. Here is Dr. Sara Arab using E. coli to kill brain tumors in 1999 at the University of Toronto. The same thing happened at Yale using Salmonella. Oof. And they want to tell you Salmonella and E. coli is bad. Oof. That must be hard on you germ boys. trichossuis therapy in Crohn's disease, and also irritable bowel syndrome. All of these studies will be in the... I could read short sections of these if I wanted, but all of them will be in the description. I've already read them enough. I recommend everyone to read all the stuff that I'm going to have in the... And also videos, because all the videos I have here, I'm also going to put in the description. Anyways, a microbiologist named Bonnie Bassler in 2009 revealed in a TED Talk that we are at least 99% bacteria and only 1% human.
Yourself as humans, and this is sort of how I think of you. And so this man is supposed to represent a generic human being, and all of the circles in that man are all of the cells that make up your body. So there's about 1 trillion human cells that make each one of us who we are and able to do all the things that we do. But you have 10 trillion bacterial cells in you or on you at any moment in your life. So 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells on a human being. And so of course it's the DNA that counts. So here's all the A, T's, G's, and C's that make up your genetic code and give you all your charming characteristics. So you have about 30,000 genes. Well, it turns out you have 100 times more bacterial genes playing a role in you or on you all of your life. And so at the best, you're 10% human. We're more likely about 1% human, depending on which of these metrics you like. So I know you think of yourself as human beings, but I think of you as 90 or 99% bacterial.
Oof. Yeah. Let that sink in for you. The human body is actually a superorganism that is composed of 10 times more microbial cells than our body cells. Metagenomic study of the human microbiome has demonstrated that there are 3.3 million unique genes in human gut, 150 times more genes than our own genome, and the bacterial diversity analysis showed that about 1,000 bacterial species are living in our gut. I know this one's going to hurt you, germ boys, real bad. Parasitic worms are already in our gut. For as long as modern humans have existed, they have carried parasitic worms that is around 200,000 years. Like many bacteria, some roundworms and flatworms, helminths reside harmlessly in our gut. Yep. All right, let's continue.
Now, obviously, the same is going to apply to raw meat, right? So cooking your food is a necessary process for reducing the risk of foodborne illness. So what...
Really? Well, let's go over raw meat then. Let's go over raw versus cooked meat then. In 1984, Alexander Yugolev, a physiologist... Well, actually, the whole thing about you getting poisoned is fake in the first place. So... obviously, I don't have to speak on that since I just did, but we're gonna go over the dangers of cooked versus raw, because he wants to say, oh well, A, B, those aren't milk isn't like a main source of those things. Animal vitamins come from animals. Most of the animal that you're eating is meat. There again, your vitamins from. I get that. Okay, now let's see what happens when you cook your meat, because you're saying that you just, you get enough. But let's see what really happens. In 1984, Alexander Yugolev, a physiologist whose works are worldwide recognized, performed an experiment. He placed 2 dead frogs, one cooked and one raw, each into a carnivore's digestive fluids. The raw frog was completely dissolved, while the cooked frog was only superficially dissolved on its surface. Why? Doesn't cooking facilitate digestion by breaking down food? No, it doesn't. The body's digestive fluids dissolve chunks of food. The cells from the food possess stores of enzymes, which are digestive agents. When the digestive fluids start dissolving the cells from food, they free the enzymes contained within, which in turn further dissolve the cells. This mechanism of self-digestion is autolysis. However, cooking at even low temperatures destroys enzymes, in which case the food structure remains largely undigested. Next is Francis Pottenger's work with cats. In 1932, and for 10 years, Francis Pottenger, Jr., physician, conducted an unprecedented experiment involving more than 900 cats. Several groups of cats were constituted. Some were fed raw meat and milk. Others cooked meat and milk, or a combination. He meticulously recorded observations of each cat every day. The cats fed entirely with raw meat and milk consistently displayed excellent health on all aspects, physical development, etc. The cats fed with cooked meat, pasteurized milk, developed many issues which worsened over generations. Their bone structure in frame and face was smaller, even deformed, expressed less sexual dimorphism, meaning the boys started looking like the girls and the girls started looking like the boys, kind of like what we got going on now, like nowadays. Sterility became prevalent. They were more aggressive. Of those ill animals from the cooked food groups, some were placed on the raw diet. Their health improved. Over 4 generations, the offsprings gradually restored their natural, healthy phenotype. And now we're going to watch a short little clip on the experiment.
Pottenger was intrigued by what he termed heat labile factors. Or put as an experimental question, he asked, does the cooking process somehow render food nutritionally deficient, causing eventual physiological degeneration? A basic diet was designed consisting of raw meat, viscera, bones, a small amount of raw milk, and cod liver oil. Each day, this basic diet accounted for 1/3 of the total dietary intake of the animals. The remaining 2/3 of the diet was the dimension of experimental manipulation. One group of cats received raw meat or cooked meat along with the basic diet. The other group of cats were given raw milk, pasteurized milk, evaporated milk, or sweetened condensed milk. Each cat's daily diet then consisted of 1/3 of the basic diet, plus 2/3 of the prepared food which was under study. And once assigned to a specific group, the animal's diet was held constant. Although there were 2 different studies, one focusing on milk and the other on meat, the results of both studies were nearly identical. Over the next 10-year period, Pottenger observed and recorded numerous physiological changes in the experimental animals and their offspring. First, you will observe the raw milk animals. They move about the pen with a great deal of agility and coordination. Notice the sheen to the fur and the normal sexual interest displayed toward the male in the next pen. As would be expected, they land on their feet when thrown in the air. The pasteurized milk-fed cats, shown here, move about the pen in a manner quite different from the raw milk cats. The cat in the foreground actually developed arthritis during the experiment. They are lethargic, much like animals in a zoo. When thrown a short distance, these animals show a slightly impaired sense of coordination. Dental deterioration was also common. Note the abscesses above the molars, the reddish cast to the gums, and the soft gingiva. With evaporated milk, there was even greater deterioration. When the study was begun, this cat was better developed than any animal shown thus far. The sweetened condensed milk-fed cats not only had their milk heat processed, but there was the addition of sugar. They are nervous animals. Again, there is marked deterioration in coordination and dental abnormalities. Notice particularly the abscesses and the purple tone to the membrane of the mouth. For a further comparison, here is another example of normal development. Notice the firm gingiva, the normal coloring tones, the beautiful broad mouth, the full jaw with obvious power. This animal happens to be a male, but the comparison is nonetheless valid. Here is another illustrative comparison. The raw milk female gets in 20 or 30 licks for every one of the pasteurized milk female, then leaps away in disgust. These were all first-generation animals, born of theoretically healthy parents, and who themselves were healthy at the beginning of the study. Disturbing.
This is only first generations. This is only the first generation. It got way worse, as this slide was talking about way further on. Eventually, the cooked meat group wasn't actually able to produce past the 3rd generation. They just kept on producing stillborns. Anyways, continuing. Weston A. Price was a doctor of dental surgery, dentist, who in the 1930s documented the health of indigenous communities of homogeneous and isolated ethnicities following their ancestral diet and their modern counterpart all over the world in a seminal observational study. Most of them ate mainly animal foods, raw, such as dairy, organs, fish. He noted they were free of most diseases, had perfect dental development, which reflected on facial development. Weston A. Price researched vitamins and minerals and believed that bad agricultural practices for soil and modern processing as cooking stripped them away from foods leading to disease. He successfully reversed diseases and improved dental and related facial development in patients using dietary regimens, especially high vitamin butter oil rich in a compound he rediscovered and dubbed Activator X, later found as vitamin K2, cold extracted at 21 Celsius 70 Fahrenheit, balanced with cod liver oil, and also cold pressed to preserve nutrients. We're going to watch another short clip from Weston A. Price.
For example, these two brothers lived under the same roof, but ate differently. The older ate primitive foods and was in excellent health. The younger had extensive tooth decay and a poor physique from eating the foods of commerce.
Vilhjálmur Stephenson was an Arctic explorer and Harvard anthropologist who in the 1900s lived with the Eskimos in Alaska and adopted their diet of raw and cooked fish without salt. In one of his travels, a sailor who had scurvy cured it by eating raw meat for several days. Stephenson noted that cooking the meat reduces its anti-scorbutic properties. Inuits who eat an almost exclusively all-meat diet find a source of residual carbs in the glycogen present in the freshly killed raw meat. Here is a scientific consensus. Research throughout the world shows that heat treatment of food alters, damages, or destroys many nutrients. 40.5 Celsius, the bacterial activity is destroyed. All functions of any animal rely on bacteria. 50 Celsius, most of the major vitamins, including vitamin A, are destroyed. 55.5 Celsius, all of those natural vitamins, enzymes, and all those subcategory nutrients are destroyed. 60.5 Celsius, the old pasteurization temperature, 50% of the calcium is cauterized, unable to exchange molecules. And by the way, I'm not saying that it's correct because it's the scientific consensus. I'm just giving what the scientific consensus says. Cooking, but I'm saying it's right. Wrapping up, cooking destroys, well, I mean, this isn't the wrap-up, but this is the wrap-up of this little thing. Anyways, cooking destroys the natural bonds of bioactive nutrients that help to grow plant and animal tissue. This releases the metallic minerals as free radicals, which cause severe cellular mutation and death. The higher the temperature goes, all kinds of points of destruction are reached. Protein, fat, and sugar denaturation that causes heterocyclic amines, lipid peroxides, and acrylamides, respectively, and all sorts of compounds. There are 32 known toxins produced from cooking, all build up in the body. Excessively heating food destroys health-giving properties and produces toxins that accelerate deterioration associated with aging processes. So anyways, and then here are 6 studies that are going to be put in the description, like I said. A number of related heterocyclic amines that are mutagenic in bacterial test systems and carcinogenic in animals are formed during the cooking of foods. The most commonly reported and abundant compounds are PHIP, MEL, QX, DIMEL, QX, IQ, and AAC. Using analysis by solid phase extraction and HPLC, amounts found in foods range from less than 1 nanogram per gram for products from fast food restaurants up to 14 nanograms per gram in commercially cooked products and over 300 nanograms per gram for well-done flame-grilled chicken breast meat. Obviously, these are all just going to be extractions. Like I said, I think you should read the full thing of all these. Next one, Department of Agriculture and United States Department of Health, Education, and Welfare surveys showed significant mutagen content in beef, eggs, pork, ham, and bacon, and a somewhat lesser amount in chicken and fish that has been fried or broiled, tofu beans, toxic in and of themselves. Cheese and some fish, when cooked under similar conditions, produced low to negligible mutagenic activity. Carcinogenic HAs are present in ordinary cooked meat and fish, and so humans should be exposed to them continuously in normal daily life. Now, the study isn't saying that people ought to, they're not making an ethical claim that people ought to, expose themselves to HAs, but they're saying since they're produced from cooking food, it's a given that we're going to be exposed to them in everyday life. Next one, mutagens are shown to be present in a variety of commercially heated processed foods, since these substances are not present in the unheated raw material. Next one, cooked foods contain a variety of mutagenic heterocyclic amines. All the mutagenic heterocyclic amines tested were carcinogenic in rodents when given in the diet at 0.01 to 0.08%. Most of them induced cancer in the liver and in other organs. Next one, the DNA abducts for the liver were correlated with the dose of the IQ and QX administered to the mice. All the data have been used for defining a possible risk estimate derived to the human population as a consequence of a cooked meat diet. By the way, I should say it now, since maybe people watching this are wondering. Animal models, like rodents and cats, the ones that are mainly going to be used here, or the ones that are mainly used. That's the only ones I really look at. I want to know what is the biological, if you find that animal models are not sufficient for knowing what will happen to humans, right? Then I want to know the biological function, the biological difference between humans and these animals that makes it so that we would react differently to carcinogens, parasites, cooked food, these things. Is it an organ? Is it a fluid? Is it a certain if you invoke evolution, that's a cop out. Okay. You have to prove it. That's a whole other argument if you bring up evolution, just so you know. And I'm fine to go into that, but you're gonna have to also prove evolution there, because evolution isn't a given. Anyways, let's continue. The last one is a article on the Telegraph. A worldwide alert was issued last night after scientists announced that much of the food we eat contains a chemical known to cause cancer, damage the nervous system, and affect fertility. The Food Standards Agency said that its scientists had confirmed recent Swedish findings that significant levels of acrylamide occurs in fried, baked, and processed foods ranging from biscuits, bread, and crisps to chips, and possibly meat. Alright, and last one, when it comes to meat, is a recent study. If Weston A. Price and Pottenger wasn't enough for you, here's, and also all the other guys, I guess. This is a modern study looking at the reduced vitamins inside of cooked meat. They use ground meat for this. And there's a 27 to 33% loss of B12, a 33 to 44% loss of E, a 35 to 42% loss in D, all from cooking. And that will be it. Raw meat is better.
What exactly are these risks? Now, there's been multiple hospitalizations caused by kidney failure from E. coli.
From E. coli or raw milk? Also, I don't agree that people get sick from E. coli. he didn't link the surveys, or, not surveys, sorry, he didn't link the studies or anything that he's putting up here inside of his description. So, just his school link, and then his Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch. He didn't put any of his sources here, so I'm not able to see how they're tracking that. But A Jonas Vonderplans has exposed cases of examples where 11-year-old girls drowned and they found salmonella inside her body. They asked the family what they ate in the last few weeks, or what the family eats in general, and they said raw milk, and so they blamed it on the raw milk, and they said this young girl died from salmonella poisoning, whereas that wasn't the case. And A Jonas found out that when A Jonas, I'm pretty sure it was A Jonas or one of his associates, or talked to the family, they found that the little girl actually didn't even drink raw milk. So, surveys and these kind of things, I don't think these people are dying due to E. coli or getting hospitalized due to E. coli, sorry, I should say. Because if you saw earlier, E. coli is helpful. Most people die from the treatments of the so-called disease, which really it's a detoxification. Most symptoms of like cold, flu, stomach cramps, these things are detoxifications. And so mostly it's the antibiotics, all the things that they put in your body, the treatments that actually harm them, hospitalize them, more than the actual parasite or the quote-unquote disease itself. And also, if you're gonna take that seriously, I have 3 cases here of multiple people getting infected from pasteurized milk. So he says later in the video that people who have been eating raw meat for 5 years and haven't gone sick, you're just rolling the dice. Okay, I could just say the same thing for you. You're just rolling the dice when it comes to pasteurized milk, because these cases, and there's a lot more cases too, I just thought I wouldn't, bore it. Just bore it out too much. Show that pasteurized milk isn't as safe as you think it is. Okay? Because the way that these things are associated are completely fallacious. So if you agree with those E. coli breakouts due to raw milk, which doesn't even show it was due to raw milk, it just shows that they went to hospital for E. coli apparently, then you have to agree with these as well. Anyways, let's see. Pasteurized milk produced at one dairy plant caused up to 197,000 salmonella infections. That's from the CDC, 1994. 2 waves of antimicrobial resistant salmonella, typhimurium, I think, infections in Illinois, totaling over 16,000 culture-confirmed cases, were traced to 2 brands of pasteurized 2% milk produced by a single dairy plant. In 1983, in an outbreak of listeriosis in Massachusetts, pasteurized whole or 2% milk was implicated as the source of infection. Inspection of the milk producing plant detected no apparent breach in pasteurization process. Disgusting. You guys can't even say that now you can't even say it's because they just did it wrong. They just didn't pasteurize it correctly. No, they didn't. They did a inspection. They no apparent breach in pasteurization process. You germ boys. I know you're seething.
You might see someone in a comment section every once in a while say, "Oh, I've been eating raw meat for 5 years and I've been totally fine." Well, you're still rolling the fucking dice regardless, and you've just gotten...
You're still rolling the dice.
lucky up until this point. So I suggest you cut your losses here.
All those acrylamides and lipid peroxides and all those toxins that are created by cooking your meat. You're taking a risk, boy.
Well, surely, Clav, there's a reason that all these people are doing this, right? You know, there's got to be some.
By the way, I'm not saying boy to like diminish him. I'm just. It's banter. He seems like an okay person.
Appeal. Now, if we look at the meta-analysis consisting of 40 studies comparing raw versus pasteurized milk, we come to the conclusion that it slightly lowers minerals. So water-soluble vitamins like vitamins B, C, and folate get reduced by 20 to 50%. Wow, that's really significant, right?
Same thing with meat.
Well, guess what? It was never a significant source of these vitamins to fucking begin with. So use your head. So these carnivores...
Okay, so then where else are you getting them? Oh, meat? Okay, same thing gets reduced. Also, you're creating toxins. Also, pasteurization isn't as safe. And, I mean, I don't know what you want, dude. The fact that the government has now... The fact that I've proven, or at least in my case, I think I've proven it. Maybe you think I haven't, or maybe the person watching this hasn't, but... If I've proven that this infectious disease, drinking raw milk, these raw products aren't gonna infect you, then the government is doing a disjustice and attacking the people by not allowing them in certain countries to get raw milk. It's nonsense.
Gurus are completely lying to you by blatantly leaving out key nuance. Imagine I had 50 cents and I reduced it by 25 cents. Do you think I give a fuck?
You can make a comparison, be as big or as little as you want. If I said, okay, you have $20,000 to spend for a year and that's all you have to live for an entire year, would you rather have 20,000 or would you rather half that and only have 10,000? Well, obviously you have 20,000 because that gives you a longer, supply. That gives you more chance of. It's just essentially, and also the only thing now that you're saying is, oh, it doesn't matter because you can get an infection. Okay, no, you can't. Still haven't proved that. So it's just nonsense.
The difference is so small that it doesn't actually matter, and it's what's called negligible. So since this change is so negligible, it really isn't worth noting.
So actually, since that's the case, I actually have some things on babies being fed pasteurized milk later on. If it's so negligible, why don't we just start feeding kids pasteurized milk? I mean... Oh, that's stupid because babies are meant to drink human milk, not cow milk. Okay, why doesn't bacteria apply the same to humans? I mean, like, these people, I mean, I showed you that we have parasitic worms already living inside our gut. Our gut microbiome has over 1,000 bacterial cells inside of it. We're comprised mostly of bacteria.
The nutritional superiority because it is so fucking small in comparison to the risk factor that you're putting yourself at. And you'll hear another absurd claim about raw milk that it's superior because pasteurization denatures proteins. But they fail to mention that denatured proteins are still digestible within humans.
Are they okay? So they're digestible, but are they actually usable? Are any of the is anything inside of that actually usable for us? No. I mean, you can also metabolize alcohol. Does that mean that it's good for you because you can metabolize it? No, of course not. Even if you're looking at just the Wikipedia for denaturation. Denatured proteins lose their 3D structure or metal cofactor and therefore cannot function. Maybe I'm getting this wrong, dude, but like just because you can digest something doesn't mean you can fully use it.
So, aside from...
Nor does it have any benefit.
The blatant health risks, there's a lot of talk about the hormones within raw milk being so necessary for developing young kids, so let's talk about it. You might have heard before that there's HGH in this raw milk.
Are you denying that it helps develop young kids?
Oh, it's this God serum. But no, it is not HGH. It's actually bovine growth hormone, which isn't bioavailable in humans. What that
We're going to get into that later.
That means is this BGH isn't actually binding to your HGH receptors, so it's pretty much fucking useless. Now let's address the holy grail of copes about raw milk, which is going to be these.
Okay, let's go over that. Colic is a concern with infants who are fed pasteurized milk. 1 of 5 babies suffer from colic. Pediatricians learned long ago that pasteurized cow's milk was often the irritant. A more recent study linked pasteurized cow's milk consumption to chronic constipation in children. Here's infantile scurvy. 3. Its influence on growth, length, and weight. Adv Exp MD. Although pasteurized milk is to be recommended on account of the security which it affords against infection, obviously Alfred still believes in the germ theory, we should realize that it is an incomplete food unless an antisorbutic such as orange juice, the juice of orange peel, or potato water is added. Infants will develop scurvy on this diet. This form of scurvy takes some months to develop and may be termed subacute. It must be considered not only the most common form of this disorder, but the one which passes most often unrecognized. Infantile scurvy. 5. A study of its pathogenesis, again by Adv Exp MD, page 1 and 2. That's page 15. Some have questioned whether pasteurized milk is really involved in the production of scurvy. The fact, however, that when one gives a group of infants this food for a period of about 6 months, instances of scurvy occur, and that a cure is brought about when raw milk is substituted. Taken in conjunction with the fact that if we feed the same number of infants on raw milk, cases of scurvy will not develop. These results seem sufficient to warrant the deduction that pasteurized milk is a causative factor. The experience in Berlin noted by Neumann and others is most illuminating and convincing in this connection. In 1901, a large dairy in that city established a pasteurizing plant in which all milk was raised to a temperature of about 60 Celsius. After an interval of some months, infantile scurvy was reported from various sources throughout the city. Neumann writes about the situation as follows. Whereas Hubner, Castle, and myself had seen only 32 cases of scurvy from 1896 to 1900, the number of cases suddenly rose the year 1901, so the same observes, not to mention a great many others, treated 83 cases in 1901 and 1902. An investigation was made as to the cause, and the pasteurization was discontinued. The result was that the number of cases decreased just as suddenly as they had increased. It should be added that the milk was also brought to the boiling point in home, as is the custom throughout Germany. Next, pasteurized milk is tutored for prevention of osteoporosis, yet clinical research shows otherwise. The Harvard Nurses Health Study, 1997, which follows more than 75,000 women for 12 years, showed no protective effect from increased processed milk consumption on fracture risk. And also, if you look at Pottenger's cats, the cats that were fed pasteurized milk actually had a lot more fractures. One had like 28 fractures and was walking around. It's crazy. All right. Studies on the nutritive value of milk. 2. The effects of pasteurization on some of the nutritive properties of milk. W.F. Krauss, H. Erb, and R.G. Washburn. Page 9. Matrick and Golding reported some preliminary experiments which indicated that pasteurization destroyed some of the dietetic value of milk, including partial destruction of vitamin B1. These same workers found the raw milk to be considerably superior to sterilized milk in nutritional value. Page 11. Fed commercially pasteurized milk. Pasteurization was also found to affect the hematogenic and growth-promoting properties of the special milk. I think they mean special milk just means raw milk. These first experiences were substantiated by further work, in which it was emphasized that milk from properly fed cattle is apparently a complete food. A complete food. What? Oh, clavicular. Oh, it doesn't even, it's not even a main source of A and B. Get out of here, man. Alright, last one. At least from this thing. Kramer, Latsky, and Shaw obtained less favorable calcium balances in adults with pasteurized milk than with fresh milk, and made the further observation that milk from cows kept in the barn for 5 months gave less favorable calcium balances than did fresh milk, herd milk from a college dairy. Several years later, in 1941, these investigations reported that guinea pigs fed raw milk with an addition of skim milk powder, copper and iron salts, carotene, and orange juice grew well, and showed no abnormalities at autopsy. When pasteurized whole milk was used, deficiency symptoms began to appear, wrist stiffness being the first sign. The substitution of skim milk for whole milk intensified the deficiency, which was characterized by great emaciation and weakness before death. The animals remained in normal posture and showed little tendency toward paralysis of the limbs. At autopsy, the muscles were found to be extremely atrophied, I think. I'm not sure how to say it. And closely packed. Fine lines of calcification ran parallel to the fibers. Also, calcification occurred in various other parts of the body. When cod liver oil replaced carotene in the skim milk diet, paralysis developed quickly, and feeding raw cream cured the wrist stiffness. And finally, we got some Randall Farms, I think that's how you say it, but it's just their stuff with rats. Rat fed only raw milk from cows, fed dry ice, sledge, and grain. Notice abstinence of acrodina. Rats fed only pasteurized milk from cows, fed dry ice, grass, silage. Sorry, I think I said sledge or something like over here. I meant to say silage. Hairless areas are due to deficiency of vitamin B6. Obviously, that's from pasteurization. Rats fed on pasteurized milk from cows fed ice, grass, silage, and grain. A striking example of a deficiency of riboflavin and other complex growth factors. Rat-fed mineral supplemented pasteurized milk from cows fed only dry ice, grass, silage. Condition of rat is due to a deficiency of thiamine, riboflavin, and other complex growth factors. This rat lived a week after picture was taken. And then finally, the realmilk.com vitamins and mineral page that only vitamin B2 has a epidemiological study here, but the rest are good. Basically, all of these are destroyed by pasteurization.
These magical enzymes, right? So the enzymes that are allegedly supposed to help you digest this magical raw milk aren't actually necessary because your body endogenously produces every single enzyme it needs for digestion.
If that's the case, then why are there people that have enzyme deficiencies? This is an outrageous claim. No, your body doesn't. You have to be healthy to produce every single enzyme, and that's mainly due to diet. Okay.
So raw milk, more expensive, harder to source, no tangible superiority really. So really just a complete fucking waste. Now you might hear, oh well, there's been more E. coli breakouts at restaurants, and you might hear from these people, well, there's more of a risk factor to eat out at restaurants. In no point in this video did I suggest that you waste your money to go out to a restaurant.
Okay, but you don't understand that the person saying that, their argument isn't that restaurants are bad in and of themselves. They're saying that restaurants serve cooked food. Restaurants don't serve raw meat. Restaurants serve cooked foods that are usually by like FDA standards, sanitation standards, and the same thing happens there. So this whole like association, E. coli breakout stuff, germ theory nonsense isn't actually because there's some microscopical bacteria that's found in raw food and you have to destroy it by burning it. It's nonsense.
So the whole raw diet is really just wretched and disgusting for no reason at all. Raw milk is not going to give you positive canthal tilt and a forward-grown max.
That's not the point of the primal diet. He fundamentally misunderstands it. In Pottenger's work, it took many generations for people like us nowadays to fully change and become, natural, wide-faced, broader, generally better-looking humans, higher testosterone humans. Especially if you look at Weston A. Price's work, the primitive tribes that ate the most raw animal products had very wide faces, like the Eskimos, broad faces. And so, yeah, you fundamentally misunderstand it. Also, why would you even want that? Wouldn't you want to be healthy instead? Like, be the healthiest that you can be, and like, I don't get it.
It's just the cope, unfortunately. Now, natural options aren't always going to be better. It's 2025 and science has gone a long way. Instead of opting for non-bioavailable bovine growth hormone, I'm personally going to opt for exogenous HGH.
Oh, okay. Let's see about that. Let's watch a little short video about that.
A powerful natural substance, once extracted from corpses to treat patients, is now being engineered in cutting-edge labs. This substance that is so powerful it fuels growth, strength, and recovery is now mass-produced on an industrial scale. Sounds a lot like something out of a sci-fi thriller, right? Well, it's not. With the soaring demand for human growth hormones, scientists have cracked the code to synthesize this life-altering compound, redefining medicine, athletics, and even aging itself. Let's first learn the origin story and how they work in your body before breaking this process down into something we can all understand. The human growth hormone is a substance secreted by the pituitary gland, which is located just below the brain. By combining different amino acids, the pituitary gland is naturally able to produce the growth hormone, which is in charge of stimulating the growth of all tissues in the body, including the bone. Scientists have known about growth hormones since the early 20th century, but it wasn't used for any treatment until 1963, when they started getting used to treat children suffering from pituitary disorders, which made them unusually short. But the drug was in short supply because its only source was from a human corpse. Collecting the substance meant isolating it from the pituitary glands of a corpse through a complex, labor-intense process. Even though this technique made it hard to collect, it continued for decades. But one day everything came to a stop, with the horrifying discovery made in the 1970s, which showed that some of the extracted substances were contaminated, having been extracted from a corpse infected with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. This disease caused rapid brain degeneration, leading to death within 12 months of when the first symptoms appeared.
Oh, so the only natural way of getting HGH, the actual only natural way, no processed, the only natural way is the most dangerous way, because you could possibly have a chance of, you have to get it from dead bodies, number one, and you also have a chance of an infected body. Now, obviously, this isn't like the same kind of germ theory infection. Like, this guy thinks, oh yeah, I'm just gonna have natural HGH from the pharmaceutical industry. Nothing they're giving you is natural, buddy. I'm sorry.
Within a few years, this tragic discovery led to the death of several infected patients. The fact that there was no way to test for it turned the lives of all of those who had previously been treated into a terrifying waiting game, in constant fear of the onset of symptoms. But it wasn't until 1985, 15 years later, when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration finally stopped all distribution of corpse-derived HGH. Coincidentally, during the same period, scientists had started exploring new ways to obtain the hormone. A biotechnology company called Genentech and a drug company called Eli Lilly had both independently been working on a new way to artificially manufacture HGH using recombinant bacteria. We'll break down the how in just a minute. Soon enough, after the breakthrough, the FDA approved Genentech's recombinant HGH in the form of an injectable drug called protropin. The recombinant, meaning genetically engineered, human growth hormone, works very similar to the natural HGH produced by the pituitary glands. Since the rHGH isn't produced in the body, it is administered through subcutaneous or intramuscular injection. Once injected, the rHGH enters the bloodstream and sticks to growth hormone receptors, which are found on various cells throughout the body, especially in the liver. The liver responds to rHGH by producing insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, a key player in HGH's effects.
Oh, okay. So, the modified HGH actually has to produce IGF-1 before it can produce HGH as like a precursor. Interesting. Oh, I thought IGF-1, oh, it's just some bovine growth hormone. We don't need that as humans. Oh, no, of course not.
IGF-1 then circulates through the bloodstream, driving anabolic effects like muscular growth, stronger bones, and cell regeneration. It also influences metabolic effects, such as breaking down fat, increasing insulin resistance, and regulating blood sugar levels.
Alright, anyways, that's basically it. I mean, we can finish this, but I have some other stuff to say about them.
I'm always going to favor science instead of fear-mongering and speculation when it comes to my looks-maxing endeavors. If you want to learn about pharmacology and science instead of nonsensical copes, check out the school community in my bio. There's extensive research, and I tell you how to effectively use pharmacology to maximize your looks. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a subscription.
Yeah, you're a slave. You're a slave to the system, I'm sorry. You're a slave to microbial demons, and also, he's an anti-natalist. Clavicular is a hardcore anti-natalist. He didn't even want to be born.
Right? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I should kick them out. I didn't want to be here doing this shit. I don't want to have to get up every day, make videos and shit. It's like, but I have to because you thought it was a good idea, 19 years ago, to have a little bit of fun. Like, what the hell? Like, let's get real for a second. It doesn't make any sense. Your parents think you owe them all this money for all the shit that they did for 18 years or whatever. It's like, that's your fault. You wouldn't owe anything if you just didn't do any, that freaky shit. I don't want to be here. I was perfectly fucking content before when I was just a little, little egg, that I didn't know you shit, you didn't know me shit. Now I'm here and I gotta pay you $400 for internet? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's not rage bait, that's real.
I mean, you could say you're joking, but I mean, that's just, how else am I supposed to interpret that? That's just peak antinatalism. Genesis 1:28, and God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Your purpose isn't to look smacks. Try to become like the You're trying to, just like, this is the problem. You have a germ theory state of mind, so you think I'm going to attack this symptom instead of the actual cause of the symptom. It's disgusting. The reason you have to look smacks is because the modern state of society is fucked up, and women have incredibly high standards, and they've been subverted by, I mean, I don't want to say who, but and then also here's Clavicular admitting Sverage's point.
He was malnourished. But that's the problem with most people nowadays, and that's why
really
they
not.
believe that putting on a
This
lot
is
of
not malnourishment. This is relatively lean, but it's not malnourished. He's lacking some definition in the lower abdomen in a flexed position, right? So that's not malnourished whatsoever. That's just a lean child.
muscle is going to
It's a
compensate
European child, right?
for the lack of bones and for the lack
Yeah,
of
exactly.
height,
It's not
face,
malnutrition.
whatever
It's
they
got
may
lean
be
mass.
insecure about. Probably everything.
Del
That's why you want to
Solo
look bigger. Why do you want to look bigger? Because you're too small in your
No, you want to look bigger so that you have an intimidation factor, so you have a presence, not only for business.
Yeah, you want to look bigger because you were too small. I mean, you're just admitting it. You can't, because you're saying that intimidation is correlated with height. So when someone's small, even if it's for intimidation, that still means you want to be taller because you're small, and you can't be intimidating when you're small. You're just admitting Sverge's point.
Capacity, but for clubbing, for nightlife especially, it's that.
I just had to add these two little things in here because I found them and I thought they were amazing. But all the other stuff just completely debunked, and you should feel ashamed of yourself for falling into this Jesuitic trap. Young white man. All right. Have a good one. Peace out.